Hey y'all, welcome to tonight's rebroadcasting of Habits of Feeling Great, and I'm Coach Ken, and in just a second we're going to be pulling on our guests as they come in. If you got invites, I'm sorry for the delay. It looks like we're having some technical difficulties, as happens for many of us when we try to go online and we do these events, but just bear with us for a second. We're going to be talking about issues regarding our health, and I got one of my first guests coming on board now. Hopefully this is going to work this time, and maybe not sure. We got Dr. Marla we're trying to get on here and seeing what is happening with our and I've just accepted it. My goodness, Dr. Marla, I don't know what's going on. I don't understand. I've accepted your request, and for some reason, there is an issue with this. I don't know what is going on. We are having some major technical difficulties. I'm not getting anybody. Now it's not letting me accept anybody on. All right. Dr. Marla, I'm inviting you back on again. I mean, Derek's over in Tennessee, so I'm scratching my head. Why on earth that we can't get Arizona on here? Now I can't get anybody on. You've never had a night quite like this one. Now I can't bring anybody on. The connection keeps failing, Marla. I've been on both. I've been on data, and I've gone between both of them. It doesn't matter. It doesn't seem to matter what I do. Marla, are you on now?
Yeah, I'm on.
Oh, there we go. There's one.
I just can't see you though. That's the problem. It's weird. It's happened to me before where I can see myself, but I can't see you. What did you do to change that?
It's a crazy thing. I don't understand what Facebook has been doing lately with that. We've had that issue a number of times.
There we go.
It seems like our bandwidth is being strained a little bit. So normally I have a computer up and I'm putting stuff in, but I won't be doing that tonight because that's how we've got everybody on. So do we have Derek, Dr. G, and Dr. Marla on?
Yep, I'm here.
I'm here. I can hear you and see you.
And Derek.
I'm here.
All right,
Hey,
there we
all
go. Well, if we can't see each other, everybody else can see us, and I'm counting on that. If you can't see us, definitely let us know. Welcome tonight to Habits of Feeling Great. And so we're kind of all in the dark on this one, but we're glad that you're here. And we've been sending our invites out. I'm Coach Ken, and I've got a great slate of guests tonight, and we're going to jump in. We're going a few minutes a little bit behind here. So we're going to try to make sure that we give you the value, and I want to try to keep it within our time frame. We may run over just a little bit. But you're going to get to know three incredible people that I'm so excited to have on tonight's live as we talk about these issues that we all are dealing with in our world. And that is having to do with the habits related to our health. Now, I'm Coach Ken, and if you know me, was a pastor for 30 years. I do real estate, but I also became a nutrition coach after I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. And if you know me, you know my story, that I'm a testicular cancer survivor. I struggled with migraines and acid reflux, arthritis, later ischemic optic neuropathy, and high blood pressure. And I felt like an absolute punch in the gut when over a year ago I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes, was sent home to just eat less and move more. That's what I was told by my doctor, the same doctor that was prescribing me a medication that contributed to type 2 diabetes all this time. Now, I was able to reverse that because I learned about two tools that could change everything about my health. More to the point, though, it also was two habits that changed everything as well. And so we're going to be talking about those things tonight because they are transformational. And so if you have been dealing with something called insulin resistance, we're going to unpack that tonight a little bit more and talk about the tools and the journey to health that we all have been on in our lives. And I want to first give each one of our guests a chance to share a little bit about their story and their journey, starting with Dr. G tonight. Dr. G, would you share just a little bit about what happened with you? What got you started? I mean, you're a medical professional, and so it would seem like you would kind of be old hat to you.
Right. First of all, Dr. Marla, it's good to meet you. I've not really met you. So it's good to see you, and it's good to meet you. And Derek, of course, always good to see you.
You too, Dr. G.
So, January 2024. Yeah, let's start there. I was diagnosed with type 2 diabetes. When I got the diagnosis, I wasn't really expecting it, but I knew something was wrong because things were happening. And I didn't want to admit, but things were happening. I was over 220 pounds. I'm only 5'1", so you can imagine. And I had fibromyalgia that was diagnosed 15 years prior to that, and high blood pressure. So I was on medication for that. I also had thyroid cancer back about 15 years ago as well. So things were happening back then that I didn't even realize that it was leading up to when I was diagnosed in 2024, January, of the diagnosis of prediabetes, which really is diabetes. And I was, like you, Ken, I was told to eat less, move more, and lose weight. And I had been doing and struggling with those things for at least a decade, if not longer, because that's what I was told when I was diagnosed with hypertension. And I was given four more prescriptions that I was already taking because one of those was for blood pressure, because my blood pressure was out of control on a medication. So I was an uncontrolled hypertensive patient. And I was told to, take these and return in about 90 days. We're going to check your blood again and see where you're at. So that's where I left the office, and I was like, yeah, no, I'm not thinking, that this is where I want to be. And so I began doing some research, and I found these nutraceuticals that we're going to be talking about tonight. And with that, a year and a half later, after being on them, because it's about a year and 5 months, almost a year and a half, I have reduced my A1C to 5.4. It was a 6.4 at the time. I have reduced my cholesterol, and I no longer have hypertension. I'm not on medication for that. With my thyroid cancer, I had my thyroid removed. So I did that all without a thyroid and lost 51 pounds. So.
Wow, that's awesome. Wow. Even when I've known that story, that's an incredible story. Every time you share that, it's been quite a journey for you. Derek, now what about you? You come to this as a professional athlete. So we got medical professional, we got now a professional athlete. Bring your story to the table and what happened and what brought you to this place.
Thanks, as always, Ken, for having me on and talking about my health journey. As you mentioned, professional baseball player, 14 years, topping out the AAA level with the Toronto Blue Jays. And, a lot of people think that athletes are the epitome of health. They're not. especially with our science calls. I see a lot of the football players that are coming on telling their stories, and it just rings home. Professional baseball, though, is a little bit different animal. It's the only sport that you play every single day. You're constantly busy. You're living out of a suitcase. You're in hotels. You're on planes. You're on buses, and you don't eat right. You're constantly eating, but you don't eat right. You know, just eat, go to the park, eat, go to the park, sleep, wake up, um, and the cholesterol issues and the low testosterone issues that I dealt with started in my 20s when I got drafted to play, and continued. I didn't know. When I retired in '04, I transitioned into the medical sales world, pharmaceutical sales rep for 3 years. And then what I do now is I'm a medical device salesman. So I have a lot of doctor friends that I work with that implant my device. And one of them is Dr. Eric Aiken, who is a partner here. Well, I'm his partner in with the Unicity program. And one day he just asked me if I knew what insulin resistance was, which made no sense to me because I was there talking to him at lunch at his office about implanting my very expensive battery. And he asked me about insulin resistance, and I knew nothing about it. And he asked me to help him start marketing this. And I was like, no, no thanks. He goes, well, do me a favor, try this product. You're having problems with your cholesterol, I'm having problems with your testosterone. Give me 90 days. And then he goes, and in 30 days, go get your blood work done, because it was pretty cool, because he said, look, if you get on this for 90 days, that insulin resistance that you developed over the years can't be reversed in a week. And it
Right.
made sense. And I said, and he goes in, well, here's the deal. You know, if your blood work don't prove that the product don't work, you get your money back. No brainer. So I ended up getting on the Feel Great system. No change in diet, no extra exercise that I already did as a retired athlete. And in 30 days, I had a perfect lipid panel. Blew my mind. So I wanted to learn more about this protocol and what it was. All I did was drink 3 bottles of water a day. And I have not looked back. I mean, I have gotten a lot of my friends, my family, my parents, my wife, my kids, my grandchild is on this stuff because it's just liquid food. So what you're going to learn tonight is simply how to reverse a problem that's very unknown to most of us, and simple
Right.
protocol without having to be perfect, having to be a perfect eater.
Which is a good thing, absolutely. Now tonight I'm excited, Dr. Marla Jirak, right? I pronounced that correctly?
Yeah, it's pretty close. Jirak, that'll work.
All right, very good. Dr. Marla Jirak, I have watched and we have communicated over TikTok a number of times, so I'm excited, wanted to have Dr. Marla on. Now, Dr. Marla can tell a little bit more, but you are a research scientist that comes to this program and to becoming a coach with Unicity, and has got a unique story as well. Dr. Marla, would you take some time and introduce us to your life and your part of this journey?
Sure. Thanks so much, Ken. And I really appreciate seeing Dr. G here and Derek. I can relate. No, research scientists aren't that healthy either. At times, it's the same thing. Now I'm retired, and one of the things I do in my retirement is I care for my daughter. So my health is important to me. And I just slowly saw it decline. And it really declined after the pandemic because unfortunately I was one of those people that got symptoms that didn't seem to go away. And I kept getting recurrence of these symptoms, cropping up, the worst being inflammation. I mean, I had so much inflammation that times I'd have to lay in bed because it just buzzed. And, I knew something was going on. And, you would think as a research scientist, I would have heard the word insulin resistance.
Right.
But that just goes to show how much we don't know about it. So I saw Anne Marie, and she and I worked together back in Tucson, Arizona. And, I saw what she was doing. I kind of asked her about it. But, just like all of us, we're like, oh, we've tried so many things.
Sure.
And we're going, is this one going to work? So, but then the 90-day money-back guarantee, just like Derek said, it got me. And I marked my calendar. And I said, I'm going to give these natural products a try. And I did. And in a couple of days, I'm going, whoa, wait a minute. Why do I feel like my clothes fit better? So I was kind of melting, but I wasn't losing the weight, but I was melting because I had so much inflammation. You get that puffiness everywhere. That's your inflammation. And so in a short period of time, over 3 months, I lost 17 pounds. And I'm like, and my husband said to me, he goes, wow, you're looking pretty good. I should try that stuff. And I said, give it a shot. And he lost, well, guys are different. Their metabolism is different. And that's what I want to talk about is that everybody's different. He lost the weight right away. But, to date, I lost 25 pounds. I've been on the product over a year. I have absolutely no desire to get off of them because I feel so good and I can care for my daughter. And then I took it one step further because her health was a mess and I'm her guardian. I got to take care of her health. And I put her on the products and she went from 165 to 133. Her health is better and her cognition is better. I'm like, I just feel like I've had gold drop out of the sky because, our health is important to us. I can't be in retirement with all the money I might have saved if I can't move in retirement to enjoy it. So that was why it was really important.
Wow, that's awesome. Yeah, and thank you for sharing about that because one of the things that I talk about a lot of times is we have the opportunity to be the hero of our story. And when you have a child in that situation, that's important, is to be the hero of your story, not just for yourself, but for her. And that's a huge part of this. Now, tonight, I'm taking a little bit of track. Now, this kind of may have thrown Derek off and Dr. G a little bit. I kind of changed things up a little bit here because we talked about a number of things and a lot about habits. And I wanted to throw this out tonight as a little bit of discussion because a lot of times it feels like when it comes to our health, we get a message, it's your fault. It's your fault that you're overweight. It's your fault that you're sick. And here's the reality of that all of us have learned on this journey, that this is kind of a group discussion I want to throw out there because we've all learned aspects of this that it's not all our fault. And I want everybody that's watching right now to hear, it's not your fault.
Yep.
The system, our education has let us down in understanding how we've gotten sick. So to throw this out here, I want to start, what has been the most eye-opening thing for you as you've come to learn about our food system? Derek, I want to start with you. What has been the most eye-opening thing that has hit you as you've had a little bit of education in being on the protocol?
Because they are physicians, and that's what I've done. And as Dr. Marla said,
we're losing your audio there, I think, a little bit, Derek.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Yeah, there we got you.
Sorry about that. Bad Wi-Fi.
Yeah, it's fading out.
All right.
Anyway.
Yeah, you're going in and out right now. Still breaking up. Let's see if we can get you back. I'm not sure if you're on the internet, if you can switch over to data, if that would help. Dr. G, what about you? We'll come back over to Derek. What has been something that's been kind of eye-opening for you when it comes to your health and learning about the food system? What kind of surprised you as you've learned this journey?
That's a very good question. Lots of things, first of all. That I think the biggest thing for me to find out is the issue with seed oils, because I never really thought about how, an oil's an oil, right? I mean, it's all the same. That's what I thought until I started reading about it. And Dr. Marla, I had inflammation too. Didn't equate it with all the other stuff. But that was an eye-opener for me when I found out how, not only about seed oils and how inflammatory they are and how they're processed and how they're made, is how abundant they are in our foods that we don't even realize it.
Right.
And it's often the first, second, or even third, ingredient before anything else. Of course, sugar's up there as well. And so along with sugar, which is another big one. But seed oils for me was the big thing. So one of the first things I did in our pantry was I went in and I got rid of all of the oils.
Mm-hmm.
The only oils
Yeah.
we have in the house are coconut oil, olive
Mm-hmm.
oil, ghee, lard, butter, tallow, and avocado oil. Those are it. And that's it. That's all we have. And a lot of people are like, wow, that's, how were you able to do that? I just threw them away. I mean, that just, got rid of them. Kind of like ripping the Band-Aid off, because they were so inflammatory, and I didn't realize how inflammatory they were until I stopped using them. And they stay in your body for a very long time.
Right. Dr. Marla, what about you? What has surprised you on this journey that you have learned about the food system and what we're being fed?
Yeah, well, the food industry itself is obviously just if the products, if they're highly processed, and the longer they stay on a shelf, the worse they are for you, because, and I'm really trying to educate people on simple facts of starting to read labels, because all that front is just a marketing piece that's marketing you to draw you in. But flip it over, because it might make you think it's a health bar, and what's really in it is carbs and sugar, processed carbs and sugar, and that's only going to spike your glycemic index and raise your insulin. And that's been mine. I'm a real big one on sugar, because I think it's not in things, and I kind of go, and then I flip it over and I go, darn, it's in that one too, like mustard. I don't need sugar in mustard. Right. And even, you even have to be careful on the outside aisles of the grocery store. I was wanting pork sausage. Flip it over, there's the sugar. It's in everything. And you don't realize how much it's in and what that processed food is really doing to us. That was my eye opener, boy.
Yeah. Derek, let's see if we got your audio back. What was yours big eye opener?
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we got you now.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so as I was saying before I got cut off, the lack of education that our physicians, which I totally respect, on insulin resistance. I mean, I just found out because I deal with the women in my family, deal with Lindsay Vim, who's at Insulin IQ. My wife first, she had hypothyroidism for 16 years on Synthroid, and all of a sudden, in 5 minutes, Lindsay said, "Hey, you have Hashimoto's." And it's like, why in the world, so somebody's trying to call me, why in the world do our doctors not know that? Why don't they test for insulin? They only test for glucose. It's amazing. And that's what's so eye-opening for me. And like you said, Ken, I've done probably 3 or 4 videos in the past week that says the same thing you just said. It's not your fault. It's the food. So that's just, they're taught to treat us when we're sick. And it's truly not their fault. They just weren't taught in nutrition in med school. So that's been really eye-opening for me.
Awesome. Well, and that gives a great segue. You brought up insulin resistance, something a lot of people aren't familiar with. And as I was talking with Dr. Marla about this and was asking where she would like to focus, this is an area that I've listened to her talk, and she's got incredible knowledge in this area of insulin resistance and what it entails, and particularly as it relates to inflammation. So I want to start kind of talking a little bit about what can we do now to get a hold of this, and starting with what is it that's really causing the problem. So Dr. Marla, would you kind of unpack a little bit for us? What is insulin resistance, and how is it causing this inflammation in our bodies that's making us sick?
Well, I think a lot of people, you raise a really good point. A lot of people don't even know. I'm looking for this one slide that I always use because it's so simple. A lot of people don't know what insulin resistance is. It's when insulin does not work in our body like it should. Because when we eat this food, it goes into our stomach, our digestive system, and then you get this sugar in your bloodstream. Well, it can't stay there because you're going to die. So it's got to go somewhere. So it signals the hormone insulin to be released from the pancreas, and this is the normal function. You want it to go and unlock the receptor on the cell, and you want glucose to go into the cell. That gives us our energy. But when you mess that up, it messes up a lot of things in our body, and it leads to, like what Dr. G was saying, chronic inflammation. And that chronic inflammation, we don't know what comes first, the chicken or the egg. Is it insulin? Is it inflammation? And it could be both. So if it's, you've got this inflammation going on, it's not going to help your insulin because it's going to mess with and interfere with the insulin signaling, just some of the stuff I was talking about. But if you've got the insulin resistance, it's also going to mess with your inflammation because it produces this kind of, it's called this ROS. It's like a reactive oxygen species, they call it. Don't worry about the technical name. But if you have more of that than you do an antioxidant in your body, because an antioxidant kind of takes care of that. So it's from this oxidative stress we get into. And, it's not a good thing in your body. And when you have those kind of reactions from this ROS, we'll call it, and you have more of that than your antioxidants, that's when it's going to interfere with the signaling, and it's going to interfere with your cells. And it's going to, too much of it makes cells die and in our liver, and there you go with diabetes. That's how it that's a simple term. I try not to get too complicated, but that's what it is. And when we are messing with, like fat accumulation in our liver, because when you mess this up, that insulin's got to go, or the glucose has got to go somewhere if you can't get it into the cell. And so we start storing it as this visceral body fat. And that's what's getting us in trouble. And then we have high blood pressure, high cholesterol, fatty liver. We have more fatty liver today than we've ever seen, even in kids. Why is that happening? It's the foods we're eating. Because those high glycemic index food, that's going to get falling blood sugar. And then everybody eats again, right, in a couple of hours. Well, insulin doesn't normalize for 4 hours. And now you're eating again. You just keep overfeeding ourselves. And that's why giving your body a rest, you have that second fuel source. You're going to burn your body fat.
Absolutely.
So that's kind of simple, down and dirty in a nutshell.
And that's a great explanation, and that is exactly right. Thank you, Jim Grasser. I appreciate that.
Oh, thanks, Jim. Yeah, thank you very much.
The thing that we're talking about in part with that is, I'm going to show a couple of slides real quick. Another little bit of ring light coming in there. I'll tap that down a bit. This is an interesting part of that, talking about insulin resistance. That's related to our metabolic health, and 93% of us as Americans are metabolically unhealthy. But here's the other part of that. We're talking about our food system, is that 95% of us as Americans are not getting enough fiber in our diets, and we're not understanding the importance because no one's telling us that. We just think, oh, we don't take Metamucil. Well, that's only for old people, right? Well, look, I may have a bald head and a great beard, but the cancer that is increasing most in our generation Y, millennial generation, is colon cancer. And the number one impact on that is not getting fiber in our diet. And it is contributing to so much. And the benefits of soluble and insoluble fiber and getting a good combination of that is that when we consume fiber first in a meal, that coats the food that we eat. It slows the digestion. It slows the absorption of the blood sugars. And the fiber actually clings to the sugars and takes it out of the body, all of the excess of that, and begins to help that healing process. And getting enough fiber, it's not a joke. It's what our grandparents told us years ago. Eat your vegetables first. That's what they said. It's a terrible impression of my grandmothers. They never talked that way. But I was told, you need to eat vegetables first. We're talking about simple things like spinach and romaine lettuce. We're talking about broccoli. We're talking about cauliflower. And one of the unique things about this protocol is that the fiber in this protocol is a source of 7 different soluble and insoluble fibers. That's not only something we're throwing out there that's just like Metamucil, because it's not. It's actually in the provider's digital reference, all right? That's what your medical providers are going to look to when they do their prescriptions. It's been studied and researched, and you don't get into that if you don't have the research and the studies behind it. And this is said to have the same mechanism of action as both metformin, be careful how I say that, statin medications. It's been studied at the Cleveland Clinic as well as the University of Sydney in Australia, the home of the glycemic index and one of the #1 heart hospitals in the world. But that term mechanism of action, I think for most of us doesn't mean a whole lot, right? As we sit there as lay people, that may not trigger anything, which is a great thing to have some medical people on here like Dr. G. Dr. G, can you talk a little bit about, when I say mechanism of action, that's an important term when it comes to medications and to nutraceuticals like the balance in this fiber medication, supplement, nutraceutical.
Yes, it is. So, and you bring up a very good point with how it works. What I'm going to, with mechanism of action, it's the way a drug or a substance, nutraceuticals in this case, produces its effect on the body. So in a sense, how a substance or drug does what it does. And there's receptors, and there are agonists, and there are antagonists and enzymes. And that starts at the molecular level. But we're not going to talk so much about that. We're going to talk about what it does as far as at a organ level. In other words, what it's doing to produce that therapeutic effect on the body. In other words, what is the end result of that? You brought up with our with the fiber, that you had brought up a couple of things with the statins or metformin or things like that. Let's talk about those mechanisms of action. So with the statin, the end goal, the result, is to have your blood pressure, your cholesterol lowered. So that's the end result with the statin. So it lowers cholesterol. It's one of the #1 medications prescribed for heart disease, cardiovascular disease. The problem with a statin, though, is that it doesn't know if it is the good cholesterol or the bad cholesterol. We have both. And so what it's doing is it's just going after all of it. So then start getting side effects. And there's many side effects, but I'll talk about just one with a statin medication, is insulin resistance. So in my practice of dentistry, I would see patients come in and they would have, they would come in every 6 months or once a year, and they'd be on no medications, and then all of a sudden they needed a cholesterol lowering medication. So what they would be on. And then about a year later, they come back, and all of a sudden now they're on metformin, and they develop type 2 diabetes. Well, we know that over long term, and it doesn't define how long the term is, but insulin resistance can occur with a statin medication.
Wow.
So they put you on the first line of defense medication for diabetes, which is metformin. So what does metformin do? That mechanism of action is to lower your blood glucose by preventing a postprandial spike in your sugar after you eat. And I believe the study was it's around 35 or 37%. Great. However, there are side effects with that medication. So then there's a number of them. You can find them in the PDR because they are in the PDR.net. We'll talk about one specifically, vitamin B12. Vitamin B12 is seen as when you're taking metformin as you are vitamin B12 deficient over time, and the longer you're on it, the more deficient you become. So we know that with a vitamin B12 deficiency, you develop neuropathy. So then now that you were put on a statin and then you were put on metformin, now you've developed neuropathy. And these are all side effects from these two drugs. Then you're put on another class of drug, which is Neurontin or gabapentin. That's a whole nother drug. Now there's the balance that Ken was talking about, our fiber matrix. It basically has the same mechanism of action as a statin and as metformin. The fiber matrix has been shown by the University of Sydney, I believe, that it lowered postprandial glucose spike anywhere from 37 to 43%, which pretty much does what metformin does, if not better, when taken closer into when you eat your meal. So without side effects. It also has been shown to lower the cholesterol on a population basis and lessen the need for a lipid lowering medication, which is a statin drug. The other two medications that I'd like to talk about too is lisinopril, which is a blood pressure medication. And what is it supposed to do? It lowers the blood pressure, but that too also has side effects. Pancreatitis, liver and kidney failure. There's a number of those as well. They're also in the PDR. One of the big medications that is all in the news, all over the place, is GLP-1. And It is a GLP-1 agonist that I'm talking about. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with that, you'll probably know it by another name: Mounjaro, Ozempic, Wegovy, all the things. Now there's a whole bunch of them because they're running out of them basically, and they're all back ordered. At least they were at one time, and so now they need more of them. But what these drugs are they're agonists. They're exactly what they say. They're GLP-1 agonists. What they're doing is it's an exogenous medication for a hormone that our body already makes. And that is that's GLP-1, glucagon-like peptide. And what GLP-1 does is it helps to keep you full. In other words, it triggers your brain to say, hey, stop eating. And when these GLP-1 agonists that were originally prescribed for diabetes, they found that this was a side effect that they had. That's when everybody started jumping on the bandwagon. That's why they were back. That's why all these things are happening now with all these people losing weight. However, there are side effects with these medications. They're exogenous hormones. They do not work with your body. They override the GLP-1. So it doesn't stimulate your GLP-1 at all. It just gives you more GLP-1. That leads to a multitude of problems. Number one is gastroparesis. And some other side effects are thyroid cancer. And my husband had, before, he never went on this medication, but because of insulin resistance, he had what is known as ischemic optic neuropathy. And that is where you have a stroke in your optic nerve. So those are just 3 of 40 pages of side effects of these medications.
Wow.
Ozempic specifically I'm talking about there. So if anybody wants that document, I'll be happy to share it with you. I can send it to you. So why are these important? Because with what we're going to talk about next is we have our tea that we talk about. This is what I'm drinking and this is part of the protocol. This helps, and Dr. Marla, I see you have it right now. This helps in lowering your blood pressure. It helps with stimulating your own GLP-1, and it does a bunch of other things. It's an antioxidant. It's an anti-inflammatory. It has probiotics in it, and I'm going to go ahead and I think Derek's going to talk about this. But again, everything has a side effect. These nutraceuticals, though, there are no side effects except a secondary effect, which is weight loss. And that's just your body, what your body's supposed to do.
Right. So, Derek, this is something that you have a great explanation on, and that is how this works and what your experience has been and the impact of the Unimate as the second part of this system, and the idea of how it works with intermittent fasting and the benefits that come with this. Can you unpack that for us a little bit at this time?
Sure. I do love the Unimate. Not only, as a baseball player, I didn't know one baseball player that didn't use something for energy to get an edge. You play 162 games in a professional baseball season, not including winter ball and instructional league. I mean, it's a year-round grind, and anything we could use for energy is great. And guess what? We're eating all the time. Well, when I heard about fasting from Dr. Aiken, I'm a foodie, and I was like, to me, it was starving yourself. Well, as Dr. Marlin and Dr. G has explained, you can't burn fat with high levels of insulin. And when your body is in a fat burning state, obviously that's when you're not eating or you're keeping your insulin levels down with fiber. So with the Unimate, I love it because as an athlete working out all the time, I used to eat before I went to the gym. I don't do that anymore. And I was 41 pounds over my retired weight of 200 and 195 or so. And as soon as I started intermittent fasting, I needed help because I like to eat. And as Dr. G elegantly explained, it suppresses hunger naturally. It just wakes it up. And if I sip on that, it's like, I don't even want to look at food. Like, it's crazy. And it's all natural with 0 side effects. And over time, again, I've lost 30 some odd pounds. I'm 6'3", so you really couldn't tell. But I mean, I walked in one of my offices the other day and they're like, Derek, you're about to be blown away. Because my face it's just weird, and but it's because I've given my pancreas a break, and the Unimante helps with that. It's just a tool.
Mhm.
For foodies like me who like to eat, this helps me to not eat, and with zero side effects. So I take one in the morning when I wake up, and then I take another one after I eat in the afternoon. It helps me not to snack because a lot of people don't realize that snacking is a meal because you're waking your pancreas up to produce insulin, right?
Huh?
And then, like right now, I'm drinking another one just because. And so, the Unimante is a great, great tool. As Dr. G said, it is a natural GLP-1 agonist, and you have zero side effects. So that's why this helps. This protocol helps because that's why I tell people when they're on a GLP-1, it's like, okay, those shots keep you from eating, but what happens when you eat? You're going to go grab a donut. You're going to go grab some fried foods with seed oils, and you're going to raise your insulin levels again. This system is a 360-degree protection suit. So I love it. The Unimate helps.
That's awesome. Awesome. Thank y'all so much for kind of unpacking it. So just to kind of really summarize real quick, starting the system, it really comes down to very simple. And I always say, look, if you can open up a bag of chips and eat this, you can open up these sachets and these little packets and put these in water and drink the tea and the balance. All right, you're going to get, when you start the protocol, you're getting 2 of the teas you drink, and then before your largest meal, your carb heavy meal during the day, you're going to drink the balance. You're going to sip on the teas, you're going to chug the balance. And it is really that simple and provides so much food freedom when it comes to life. I mean, you get to really eat very much once you understand the benefits of, we don't really do diets. That's really not the focus of this at all. It's simply really learning to eat healthy and having the food freedom. Now, as coaches, each one of us every week, we're working with our clients. And some of you guys are on here, and we're so excited, and maybe you're tuning in today. One of the things you're going to hear me say throughout this part of the call and this part of the live is that if you were invited here by somebody, get with that person. If it's a coach, if it's somebody on here that invited you, if it was Derek, Dr. Marla, Dr. G, or myself, and you were invited here, get back with those people that invited you to learn more about how the system works. And if you're on here as one of our clients, you may have some questions. And as you've listened to us talk, and maybe you've come out of this, write your questions down in the comments. We're going to throw out, I like to call this our frequently asked question time. This is our FAQ. But we all typically have some questions that we get through the course of the week. And so I wanted to start with Dr. G. Dr. G, what has been a question that you have gotten from your clients this week that has kind of been a theme for the week for you?
I've been getting, I've been on this system for 2 weeks and I haven't lost any weight. It's not working. What am I supposed to do? Like, why? I see everybody with all these amazing results. And my answer to that is, first of all, trust the process. And consistency is key. Daily. You cannot drink this every now and then when you feel like it and expect the result that you're wanting. If you are on it for, if you are taking this to get off your medication, say for high blood pressure, when you were given that blood pressure medication, you were told to take it every day. So this is not some miracle thing where you just take it when you feel like it. You need to be consistent. I've been doing this for a year, 5 months. And so over time, what's going to happen is you're going to see results. Trust the process. It also depends on, like Dr. Marla said earlier, everyone is different. If I was diagnosed in January with type 2 diabetes, well, but that doesn't mean that's when it happened. That's just when I was diagnosed. And it was happening 10 to 15 years prior to that. But if someone had been diagnosed 25 years ago and they've been being treated for 25 years, certainly their journey on this is going to be a little bit longer where they're going to see results, but they're not going to go from, 14 to a 5, a 14 A1C to a 5. They may, and that's great. They may. Everyone is different. But you need to trust that process. And and as far as it's not a weight loss program, that's a secondary effect. So, and because when your body is working at the cellular level to do what it's supposed to do, it doesn't need all that inflammation. It doesn't want all that inflammation. So it's a metabolic health protocol to work at the cellular level to address the root cause of whatever's going on. And there's a number of things that are going on because of insulin resistance. And so I also encourage them, focus on the non-scale victories. How, like you said, Dr. Muller, how are your clothes fitting? How do you feel? Do you have more energy? Is your mission gone? You know, or your aches or your chronic pain, how's that doing? And these are measurable things because you've had, you know, for me they were, because the weight loss came, it was secondary. It wasn't my primary motivation either. I wanted to get off medication. That was my primary motivation. So that's what I like to tell people, and encouraging them, trust the process. It's not gonna, you didn't get this way overnight. You're not gonna overnight.
Right, right.
Excellent.
Dr. Marla, what about you? I'm going to change my little order here up a little bit. What has been one of the questions that you've gotten over the course of this week that has kind of been a theme among your clients?
Thanks, Dr. G. That was excellent, because you're absolutely right about timing, because people have to be patient. We didn't get here overnight is a good one. But I get a lot, too, about, you know, how am I ever going to get off my medication? Because, you know, people do not realize that those medications you put on are imitating what your body will do. And I'm trying to empower people to say, your body will work for you, but we're putting stuff in that is making it act out. And so how do we get that back? And you get that back by, you can take the products with medication. You work with your doctor to get those lab results that you need to get that, you know, to get those numbers where they're supposed to be, and you and your doctor decide that, yeah, you can get rid of that medication. I think we have one of our friends, Michael, who we love his story, because he was on 25 medications. And that goes to kind of the next most common thing people talk about, cost. You don't have copays anymore when you're on this because you feel better. Your health is better. You don't have medications you have to take anymore with the help of your doctor, and you're not paying those copays. I skip breakfast. There's a meal I save. I don't snack. I skip the snacks. And I also thought about the other day, since we have vitamins, that's also in our 7 soluble and insoluble fiber product. I'm not taking all these vitamins anymore. And, you know, and I feel amazing and I look amazing. And that's the thing. You gotta know that medications imitate what your body can really do, especially that GLP-1.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. The idea that the medications imitate what your body can really do. That's a great thought. Thank you so much. Derek, what about you? What's been one of the things that has been a theme for conversation with clients this past week?
The most common one, do I need to stay on this protocol forever? And because the Feel Great system is an insulin-lowering protocol, as the doctors both said, Dr. Marla, Dr. G said that, you know, this is not a weight loss program. It's not a diabetic medication. It's not a cholesterol-lowering medication. It is an insulin-lowering protocol. So I tell people yes and no. First of all, no. If you want to eat perfect, work out all the time. Heck, I'm an athlete. I don't work out all the time. And, you know, I love to eat, like I say. You know, Ken, you said that you get the fruit freedom. Rice is sugar. Bread is sugar. Pasta is sugar. Sometimes I like to eat that stuff. So if I eat it, the fiber protects me because it's been stripped from that stuff. So that's the cool thing about it. And so, no, if you want to eat perfect and stay on an unsustainable diet, no, you don't need the Feel Great system. But if you're like me, that I'm not that, it's not that I'm undisciplined. It's just that there's some food that I do like to eat. I just add a little fiber to it. That's it. And so that's my answer to it. You know, yes and no. But they always ask me if they need to stay on it forever, because I look at it as liquid food. This is food, fiber, and a yerba mate plant. That's it.
Well, I'm going to wrap things up here a little bit. We're coming, man, y'all did a great job. We managed to make up our time, and this has been full of incredible information. I want to throw out one more thing, that if you're coming to this, and we've kind of hit on it a little bit, and Derek did too. I think we're both foodies. We talked about Michael. Michael and I actually, those of y'all that don't know, Michael Martin and I actually grew up about 2 hours from each other. And most people don't know. We didn't realize that. But he's kind of like me. I love my fried chicken and my fried catfish. I mean, that's what we ate in Mississippi. I still eat those things, but what I've learned in being on this diet is I've learned the importance of meal sequencing or meal order, that we eat fiber, proteins, and fats, and those carbs, like Derek's talking about, we put at the end of the meal. And I talk to people about this with my clients. Do you have to be keto? Do you have to eat a particular diet? Well, I don't diet, and I don't particularly coach that way, but if you do, and maybe you've got a good doctor that has recommended a particular diet, or you have a nutrition coach, or you have a dietitian that's put you on a Mediterranean diet, or a carnivore, or a vegetarian, or a vegan diet. This protocol works with every single one of those. I have clients that do all of those. I became a nutrition coach to back this up because I wanted to understand how these simple food products were working. And my thought was, if these are just food, then I ought to learn nutrition to know how to use them best and to coach people that are on the protocol. So I want to wrap this up, and I want to remind everybody, if you are coming on here, you see us on here, you were invited to this call, or you're watching it and because Derek or Dr. G or Dr. Marla or myself recommended it. You may be seeing this on Facebook. You might see it on YouTube. Wherever you happen to do that, I encourage you to catch up with the one that invited you. And Derek, Dr. G, and Marla, we're all on TikTok. We're all here, obviously, on Facebook. And I encourage you to reach out to everybody here and get with the person that invited you, the person that you know, so you can learn more about the Feel Great system and these habits that we're talking about. You don't have to do this alone. You get to do it together with a coach. And this has been the best product on the planet to change all of our health. And if you're trying to do that, these are the folks that I recommend you get in touch with. All right, Derek, Dr. G, and Dr. Marla, thank y'all for being here tonight. We are so excited that we got to have you all on. I'm glad the technology didn't screw all this up tonight. This will be up for 30 days here on Facebook, but it will also be on our Healthy Together and Feeling Great YouTube page indefinitely, so you can come back and watch it. Thank y'all for being here tonight.
Thanks, Ken.
Thank you, Ken. Thanks, Dr. G. Bye-bye.
Bye.